Greetings, guten Tag, Talafalava. This is Dr. Snow Brown speaking to you all. A very good evening. Well, I say good morning or good evening to you all, wherever you are. From Dr. Snow Brown. Greetings to hello to my Snowcane Club congregation, especially my snow sheep, snow shepherds. The Knights and Chiefs are into today's war program. Right, this evening being Sunday, this is Sunday here in New Zealand. I want to cover a very important topic for us I want to touch base with. And that is, you all know about my restraining order. I didn't file it on the 18th of November, that's correct. I was busy running around like a mad, running around trying to gather information, get more information. So I managed to somehow, request for official information by a particular police station. So I'm waiting for that information, but I mean, I can still go right ahead and file my restraining order, no problems, against Constable Stuart Bertram Blake. Now, I want to let you all know how serious this case has become. It's almost like I'm Dr. Snow Brown. I'm a noble. What does it mean to be a noble? Well, I think the Kingdom of Tonga knows what it means to be a noble. A full royal. Yeah, a royal. Generally, what that means is a noble is somebody that is a full royal. That is either has been crowned, a king or a queen, or a prince, or somebody, that's right. So that's been given some sort of royal status, or a head of state, or a sovereign head, like King Charles III. Now, in my case, you all know that my kingdom is Crystal Kingdom, Church TV Limited. It's a private company, but it's also a kingdom. And in that kingdom, we have a sovereign head is Her Majesty Queen Snow Brown. And the national pastor, or the representative of Queen Snow Brown, is Dr. Snow Brown. So I must be a sovereign head. I must be a sovereign and independent sovereign head of my own, like Queen Salote, and the King of Tonga, That's correct. That is absolutely correct. Now, I'm a German noble. I'm a German Samoan noble. That's correct. And my intellectual property was born that way. It's a meek Knights Templar. That's correct. So this isn't an intellectual property for the people of Aotearoa, let alone for the ratbags of your country, Aotearoa, New Zealand. That's correct. This kingdom of mine was never open, was never ever supposed to be available, let alone open to the public. It was always private. That's correct. And I think the conditions made it very clear the kind of people that were welcome into the kingdom. They must be what? They must be qualified, they must be reborns, they must be Christians, and they do not have any criminal backgrounds. That's correct. Or any such, But I'm finding today that, today I'm talking about, just this evening, we're talking about the case of this victim. There's no doubt I'm a victim. I'm a victim of slavery. I'm a victim of torture and cruelty. I'm a victim of criminal stalkings. I'm a victim of criminal harmful protocols via arbitrary dictatorships. Now, you've all been preached by me. Maybe it's because I am definitely not only living in the wrong address, among the wrong people, toxic people, but also I've been a target by two criminal organizations in your country, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in the last 26 years, being the Ku Klux Klan and the Mongrel Mob Association Upper Hutt. That's correct. So I have been a target. And unfortunately, it is so sad to have to come to the realization last Friday that I definitely am a victim of rape by two police officers that were on duty on the 24th of June after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 2003, until in the morning of the 25th of June, 2003, when I turned up at court. That's correct. So there are 2 officers. That's correct. And I wrote on the request for official information from the police station that were 2 suspects. That those are the 2 suspects, 2 offenders that definitely committed a sexual assault crime, and have also are likely to be the same culprits that have also been harming the victim through their other criminal associates, like the criminals inside this address, by applying their criminal harmful protocols. That's correct. The 3 nosebleeds. Yeah. I think that those 2 are the same culprits that also gave you the 3 nosebleeds and other tortures and cruelties. That's correct. It is so sad to think that the government of New Zealand would have actually conspired with the New Zealand police, that's correct, to cover up and protect those 2 officers. I'm sorry, you 2 need to hand yourself down at the police station and make a confession, because it is my belief that the victim now is definitely convinced, but also that she was sexually violated during that lockup on the 24th of June 2003, and that the 2 officers, well, I can still remember what they look like. That's right, they were both Pākehās, but it looks like they might also have Māori heritage. That's correct. So they must be part of some Māori iwis. That's correct. That's really sad. That's so sad, that to be raped by 2 police officers. That's correct. And so the suspect, so we now have a lead. Well, this my investigation. I'm doing my own private investigation and searching. And I believe that Constable Stuart Bertram Blake is my lead, is the lead to catching those two officers that were on duty. They are part of the organization. They are part of this criminal Mongol Mob Apartheid Association. That's correct. And also the KKK. They are both KKK MMB associates. That's correct. They would also know Matthew Palmer really well, Professor Matthew Palmer, or the Chief Justice Matthew Palmer. Those 2 officers that were on duty that afternoon, through until the morning, they would also know Mr. Anthony Short, Mr. Willow, that gave you the 1-year order of supervision. That's great. Oh, actually, he set you up. And the 2 officers that served his trespass notice on the 21st of April 2007, blank on the back deliberately, that is a KKK MMB harmful protocol. So in other words, that is what a KKK would give to an MMB. That's correct. That's how if they wanted to set them up or lure them into a trap. That's correct, which is what they, and of course they did achieve that. They mislead you deliberately. So that's a harmful protocol. So instead of serving your trespass notice as you normally would, completed on the back. Now, of course, it was dated the 6th of April 2007, but it was served on the 21st of April 2007. The 2 officers actually deliberately left it blank. They left it blank. That's correct. Although the one they took with them to the station might have been completed, but the one that I got given was left blank on the back deliberately. That is not good. That's not good at all. And those 2, I believe, also know the 2 officers that were on duty that gave you not only the torture, the ear pus, your pus coming out of your ear, and your face swell up, and you felt pain and agony all over you by the 26th of June 2003. So there's no doubt that those 2 officers were either paid to do what they did, or they did that on behalf of the criminal organization. And it looks like they also could have done it on behalf of the Māori people, the people of Aotearoa. That's correct. And Chief Justice Matthew Palmer. Sad. It is really sad. So it is so sad for the New Zealand Police Office organization, and even the Police Commissioner of New Zealand to cover up and not cooperate. They must cooperate. Because for the victim, I've got more rights. I need those 2 officers to be apprehended and prosecuted. They should have gone. They should be, arrested, processed in the system, and sent through jailbird. Why? Well, because Well, that's probably why the victim has been harmed all this time. That's correct. Because they have not been arrested and apprehended as they should be, as you would. And even if you were part of a criminal organization, you'd expect that you would what? You would hand yourself in. That's correct. Because that's what it means to be a gang member in a criminal organizations. You commit a crime, you do your time. You go into jailbird, just like the president of the so-called Schwarz, Philip Schaefer. If he commits a crime over in Germany, do you think they let him off? Do you think they cover up if he raped somebody or if he did something over there? If they have the evidence and the Germans, complained to the police station and they carried out an investigation and discovered that, yes, it was President, Philip Schaefer that committed a crime? No, he goes to jailbird. They arrest them, they process them, and they hand them and they send them into jailbird. That's correct, because that's how it is, because that's the way, that's the agreement. If you're going to be part of a criminal organization, you commit crimes, that's what you're about. Now, do your time. Be prepared to go into jail, but don't say you're going to dodge the bullet and cover up and lie about it. Because what will happen is that you'll continue to target the victim, but you'll also continue to harm the victim, and probably it'll even be worse. That's correct. And this is exactly what's happened to the victim. So, Constable Stuart Bertram Blake is a lead. He's actually a suspect. He could actually be one of the suspects. That's correct. So when I get the information from the official information from the police station, that the full names of the two officers that were on duty, and if it says Constable Stuart Bertram Blake, then did I get the wrong offender? No, I got the right one. Remember, he didn't complain. He didn't retaliate by serving me a trespass notice, which was weird. That's correct. So he just accepted his trespass notice. He didn't fight it. He didn't, unlike the MMB members inside this address, that's right, that I had a hard time trying to serve them a trespass notice. Unreal. That's correct. Oh, he didn't fight it. No, he didn't. He didn't resist when you gave him that trespass notice. That's right, because if he didn't accept it, he would have what? He would have told the police station, don't upload your trespass notice, but not only that, he would have returned it, or he would have served you one. That's correct. So, Constable Stuart Bertram Blake is dangerous. Why? Because he has abused his so-called authority as a member of the New Zealand Police Force to place your private Facebook, that is a private, company, and also, under restriction for some sort. There's no need for it, buddy. It's correct. You definitely are a maniac to want to control somebody. So now my Facebook, it is another 23 days for the feeds. That's correct, to be lowered down. So at the moment, that's correct. So it won't be cleared until 23 days. But he gave you 26 days. Like a banning restriction, that's correct, in which your book, your Facebook will remain closed that way. 26 days. The man is a maniac. But he's a police officer. He would be a suspect. You know why? Because if my so-called, my analytical skills are right, in my so-called, gifts in the Holy Spirit is right, it is highly likely that he would know Mr. Arthur, Dr. Tavi Talipina really well, because in 2003-2002, Constable Stuart Bertram Blake lived in Whitby, Porirua, 2 Cage Lane, Whitby, Porirua. And get this, he was a technician at the time. I am guessing that he might have graduated from police college, New Zealand Police College, Porirua Police College, around about, say, April 2003, because it was April 24th of June 2003. That's correct, that I was arrested for the third time regarding the willful trespass charge protest there at the law faculty grounds that if he was the police officer that was on duty that afternoon and in the evening right till the morning, then I'm afraid he must have been a new graduate. He must have been a new graduate. He must have graduated in 2003 as a constable from the New Zealand Police College. That's great. Because, well, I just kind of looked at that information and I said, how weird is that? That's great. So in other words, he must be a KK member. He must have been a member of the organization before he became a police officer, a constable. So in other words, there are police officers, formerly, they had other jobs, right, like technician and whatnot, plumbers and whatnot, other jobs, all sorts of jobs. And they were part of the organization. So they must have been members or associates of the Upper Hutt Mongol Mob Association or the Ku Klux Klan Association. And before that, so before they joined to become police officers, they were already in a gang. That's correct. Now, can you see how dangerous that is for the New Zealand police to employ people like that, to accept people that have gang connections, that are already members or associates? I mean, it's just dangerous. So look what happened to me. That's great. You actually got raped by, there's no doubt, I actually think it was by both of them. That's great. By the two officers. So Constable Stuart Bertram Blake is one suspect, because he would know those two officers that were on duty that day, the day that during your lockup. That's correct. So he would be the link, he would be the lead. That's correct. So if an investigation is carried out on the restraining order, which ideally it should because of the 3 nosebleed and all these other tortures and these long-banning decisions that you got dealt to. You got dealt to by the police officers. That's great. But I mean, hello, why did you have to do that? You weren't even a member, let alone an associate of the criminal organization. That's correct. It's no wonder they stole your play and entered your address there in Whiteman's Valley to give you the second nosebleed about the 15th of November 2006. That's correct. That continued on till about the 30th of November when I went to see my doctor about to seek medical attention. That's correct. Dangerous. It is so dangerous. So they must have been new graduates from the police college in that year. And they decided, that's right, so they must have been paid for it to do what they did. And it looks like the people of Aotearoa and the rest of the people of this country had known about that. Had known about that dirty little secret, that they wanted to convert you to a whore, to a sex slave on behalf of their criminal organization, which I have nothing to do with, but that would explain why there's so many MMBs inside this address. That's correct. And that would also explain why the police were always ignoring your complaints by the police, by whether it be online or the 111 number. They gave you alternatives. As opposed to arresting the culprits or investing or accessing the video surveillance to have those people arrested. So the other suspect that I'm now guessing that would also know Constable Stuart Bertram Blake regarding your sexual assault and 3 nosebleed, especially the sexual assault and the torture on the 26th of June 2003, because that carried on from the arrest. That's correct. Is Constable Jeff Blake. Now I've got his cell phone number. That's correct. Because you see, what I don't understand about the police is why are they dodging the bullet? Every time you make a complaint, they don't even do anything, except I'm actually above the rest of your country. That includes I'm above your citizens. I'm above your the members of the Crown, your government. I am above even the sovereign head. Although that's correct. And I'm even above the Prime Minister. I am a sovereign head in my own right. I'm a noble. And they dare give you the treatment of a convict, let alone a sex slave and a slave. That's correct. How disgusting. New Zealand, you are guilty as of criminal, of treasons. And for that, the 1,000, your country deserves to know, especially the enemies that have been dealing to you. They should all be arrested, but put to death. Look how they ran away with the spoon and the cow. And they try to dig your grave. They try to dig your grave all the time. All they did was give you harms, that's correct. But you're not a member of the organisation. My goodness gracious, New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, they really have run away with the spoon and the cow. Nasty. They are nasty, all right? So what would happen if, because those two officers that were on duty, they need to be arrested, but so does everybody else, like the next door neighbour, that's correct. Everybody else that contributed to your pain and suffering, that gave you a harm, a torture, but committed secret crimes against your person. You're one individual. That's correct. Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern would never want to be given, to be raped by 2 police officers during a lockup. No, she would want them to be arrested and put away. That's correct. Just because the people of Aotearoa have got this special, treaty partnership, this partnership going with the white man in this country, don't mean that you people, that we're going to have to make excuses for your secret crimes against our persons, that we're going to cover up your so-called silly crimes. That's correct. That's not on. No. If you join up in a criminal organization, you have to go to jail. You got to go to jail, Bert, if you commit any crimes. That's correct. But you cannot do that, because the next thing that's going to happen, we're going to have an all-out war. Just like I said, come the 30th of January, you guys better hand yourself into the police station and own up and take responsibility for your crimes, or the Nazi soldiers will put you out of your misery. That's correct. So you better make up your mind now, people. That's correct. Time's running out. Time's running out for each and every one of you. I got every right to disband the KKK and MMB. Every right as a victim. They didn't need to give you those 3 nosebleeds. That's correct. They certainly didn't need to give you any of those long banning decisions. So who does Constable Stuart Bertram Blake think he is? To dictate to my Facebook, to control you like some piece of, I don't know, like some property or chattel or some slave? I'm sure his partner wouldn't like him controlling her personal. I mean, if her partner owned a company of her own and she was a director, she wouldn't like her husband, that's right, her partner, to control her, how she would run her company. Then know what she says and does in there. That's correct. Oh, buddy, you need to be arrested. In fact, I'm more tempted to have him arrested for torturing the hell out of you now. The only thing that people did here in this local township and even this address was torture the hell out of you. That's great. And it's not even necessary. I don't think they realize that when you're a noble or a full royal, let alone a royal, people, they're not allowed to do what they've done to you. They are not allowed to control you, dictate to you, any. I only have to look at the royals there in Norway, and I know that they are not disrespected. But commoners and even police officers who are just commoners, and even, tenancy managers or those normal officials who are just commoners, have got no right to overstep them. Let alone overthrow their authority. You've got more rights to have them arrested and put to death. And put to death, that's correct. Than they do overstepping you and your authority. They have the nerve. So what would happen now if the Nazi soldiers were to turn up? They've got no choice. They have to accept the outcome has been given to them because they've been harming the victim. And they've been getting away. The government of New Zealand, as well as the New Zealand police force, and their own racist, Pākehās and Maoris that are in partnership, have been covering up, making excuses. You can't do that, New Zealand. You cannot allow that kind of thing to do, because none of you would take the risk, would allow anybody to do any of the harms that they've done to me. That's correct. You wouldn't. You would want to put them out, put them out of their misery. And here I was thinking that it was a joke. No, it's not a joke anymore. Sadly, I'm not speaking the Māori language at all, and I'm not having anything to do with your country, because, well, you've committed a lot of heinous treasons, and I mean so many treasons. 3 nosebleeds, the 8 years from Wins, the 7 years from Apahat Kosi Club, the 6 years from Victoria University, what else? The 7 years with the order supervision from Mr. Anthony Shaw, the sexual assault from the 2 police officers on the 24th of June, and the other tortures, like on the 26th of June 2003, and also the controlling, the arbitrary dictatorships and denying of your privileges as a noble and also as a full citizen of New Zealand. Hey, that's too much. That's already too much. That's just way too much now. That's correct. Well, maka o kia lava le leanga o mea ngusila wa whai ngā oe. But I mean, you're just an individual out of 4.8 million other people out there in this country. They chose to be that cruel and that nasty. That's great. So they deserve the 1,000 Nazi soldiers. And they deserve everything that you preached to them about, whether it be swear words, son of a bitch, you name it. They deserve it, all right. When you're considering their selfishness about their treaty partnership that is so freaking evil. It's correct. Can you imagine how they knew about the 2 officers? And they want to protect them and cover them up? I'm sorry, New Zealand Police College, New Zealand Police, you need to you need to conduct an investigations, but you need to cooperate. They need to give you the information instead of, dodging the bullet, making excuses, and covering up. That's great. That's not on. That is just not on for this victim. And I do not need to let people like you people walk scot-free and not retaliate? You expect me not to retaliate? I tell you right now, a lot of this country is built on retaliation and built on retributions and revenge. They are. And they got the nerve to judge you about your 3-day war and your style of preaching and what you say. You know what I said about Constable Stuart Bertram Blank? He deserved what I just said. It's great. But again, that's an illustration, and that's a preaching, and that's my right. That's my right as a noble. He didn't have a right to enter my so-called private kingdom and take things out of context, He's got his own Facebook. He's got his own private spaces. That's correct. He doesn't need to come into my private space. But like again, the people of Aotearoa and the rest of them in this country are so rude and arrogant. But the jealousy and the racism, I really don't need anything from any of you. Especially your arbitrary dictatorships, especially your garbages in the form of criminal harmful protocols and arbitrary dictatorships. I do not need any more of your lapisi. That's correct. Needs to stop. And the fact that I go out of my way to serve my trespass notice to cater to my needs, that the police officer couldn't be bothered, and yet they're sworn and they're paid to do that job? Man, I deserve a big paycheck. That's correct. In fact, I deserve all the money that they get paid for. Amen, amen. When you think about the atrocities, that's correct. It's incomprehensible. It's unspeakable. It's abominable. I mean, it's just too much. It's just way too much. That's correct. One judge couldn't deal with the so-called heinous, atrocities and the harms that I had to endure, that I survived. That's correct. Thank God to my God, the guardian angel and archangel. They've done a wonderful job in taking good care of me and looking after me, because the government of New Zealand has not been looking after you at all, that well at all. They have been such a stinker, like the rest of their citizens that are a stinker and are so selfish and self-centered and arrogant. And then, of course, the treaty partnership. You know what? Nobody needs your treaty partnership at all, to be honest. No, I'm serious. This victim doesn't need it anymore. I don't need you to speak your language, and I don't even need to acknowledge it either. And I don't need to respect your treaty or document or whatnot. Why? Because I'm not Maori. I don't belong to any of your iwi. Although it looks like you've all been taking advantage of this noble. That's great because of my indigenous looks. But at the end of the day, I am German. I am a German noble, all right? But it's part Samoan. But at least my type of Pākehā, I'm a noble Pākehā. I'm not a common Pākehā. Just take a look at how I write, how I do my trespass notices and how I serve my trespass notices. Hey, that's not a commoner's way of doing it. You know what I mean? There's a noble Pākehā's way of doing trespass notices that you ain't never seen before done it that way, have you? Right, that's because I'm a noble and you're not. That's great. Right. You people will lower my status down to a commoner, all right? They already have been doing just that. And also to a convict. But at the end of the day, you do not need any of it. You can say that again. All right, you all have a nice evening. And I'll tell you when I file my restraining order. I will let you know how it went. That's great. You all have a nice week, nice weekend, nice week. But again, New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, you are all guilty. Your country is guilty of treasons, heinous treasons. Sadly, I don't ever want to say nothing to any, especially the treaty partnership. I got nothing to do with your people either. I like my kingdom just for my needs. It's just for me. That's correct. I don't need the public to enter my kingdom because you people don't respect my noble, privileges. You don't respect the noble's arrangement. You don't respect me. So I don't need commoners and idiots, and dumb fucks to come and enter my kingdom when you don't know how to use it. Only I know how to use my own intellectual property. So I don't need any of you. The Māori people need to create their own Māori TV. It's interactive. It's interactive on Facebook. That's great. Or have their own, church TV. But please, don't enter. You don't need to enter my kingdom anymore. That's great. The condition states clearly. It's a private kingdom, private monarch. Right, you all take care. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.